Well, good morning. Buenos días, muchachos. ¿Cómo está? Bien. My Spanglish is so bad that we needed multiple translators on our trip to explain what I was trying to say. But we had an amazing experience, and we're delighted that you're here to see some pictures and then hear the testimonials of some of our participants who came and had the opportunity of a lifetime to engage with a beloved community in El Salvador. So we had 13 participants go on our trip this year, which was a lovely sized group to engage, young and old, from 80-something to 16? 15. Emma just seemed so mature. I said 16. And the engagement brought not only relationship within the group, but also with the members of the churches that were excited to have people of their age attend, and so they could experience what our family and community is like as well. Our main translator is not here today, Sophie Yates, who has for the last 3 years been our main translator. She just got employed and is living in Wilmer, working at a social justice organization in bilingual communities in Wilmer. So we're excited that, as every parent's dream, their college educated kid actually got a job. And so we're excited for her as she starts that new adventure in her life. But I'm going to kind of run through our day-by-day experience. I'm going to fill in some of Sophie's commentary on the trip from those moments, and then at the end invite each participant to kind of share their highlights that really impacted them in their experience. So our day of travel, if you ever wondered how do you get to El Salvador, you generally, it's not too long of a flight. It's straight south from Minneapolis, and you fly down to Houston. Actually, I think one of the hottest points of the trip was sitting on the plane without AC in Houston on the tarmac waiting to take off. But the airport in San Salvador is this modern, beautiful building. I was telling some of our older members that it's one of the odd things about traveling there is it's almost like if you're over 70, you automatically get a wheelchair when you get off the plane. There's like 35 to 40 wheelchairs lined up with all these young teens that are there to be the aides and push you around. And
I wish you'd have told me earlier.
Mike wanted to know, he needed that earlier. But so we had no problems with any of our travel and any of the trip, which was just amazing. Everything was on time. Our shuttle was there when we needed it. We had a 15-passenger van to get around. After a long day of travel, we got to Las Magnolias, which is you'll see the place where we stayed, and we got to chill and relax that first day. So not too much of a hardship in our travel adventures. This is Christian, and Christian owns this guest house. There's an amazing story of how this happened and how this is actually it's a palatial home on the side of the volcano overlooking the city of San Salvador. So Christian, his life story, I can't share it all right here, but needless to say, he came from a very poor village in northern El Salvador. His family was caught up in the middle of the Civil War. Many of his family members were killed. He was forced into kind of being a boy soldier as a young boy, escaped to the city, started just working in a grocery store, was befriended by the bishop of the Lutheran Church, and through that relationship, he told the bishop he was a painter. One of his crosses is hanging in our entry that he painted. And this life of his relationship with the Lutheran Church expanded. He then went to, during the Civil War, the government was going after him because he came from this rural village that was thought to be only the guerrilla army was under. So they sent him to Sweden to escape from the army, and he lived there for 3 years as an exchange student. Learned to love snow. from a man who never had seen it before. Came back and started painting more, and he working for the bishop, painting crosses and things. The missionaries from different countries would ask him for some of his art, and the missionary from Finland said, "We would like you to paint like a couple hundred crosses for us to take home." He's like, "Oh, that's a lot." And so he painted those, and then they 2 months later said, "Okay, now we need another 1,000." And he's like, "What?" And then they said, the next year, he's amazing. They said, "Now we need 3,000." So that he realized this could be a job, an industry of his art. And he figures every home in Finland has one of his crosses now. Because the church has bought so many. And that's expanded to working with the bishop, working in the bishop's office, then becoming an ordained pastor himself. And he's the pastor of one of the churches in El Salvador. During that time with missionaries coming from different parts of the country, a gentleman from Ohio that he befriended came down, and the gentleman, Christian, would put up the groups around town in hostels. And the owner, or this gentleman that came down, said, "Christian, I want to do a favor for you. I want to buy you a house." And he said, "I have a nice home. I don't need a home." And he's like, "No, I'm going to buy you a house." He bought him this mansion on the side of the hill so he could host groups, church groups to come. Wow. And bought him and his partner, Aldo. Aldo works in a pharmacy, but he's a chef. And so you can't say we were really roughing it in El Salvador because we had a private chef that cooked amazing meals for us every single night. And we got to come back to this beautiful home that could host us in the evenings and house all of us. And that's literally the view of the sunsets from his balcony, from that patio that we sit out on. So we got to recoup the things we did and saw. So this is where we were roughing it. Our first day, we got to meet the brand new Bishop of El Salvador. Bishop Gomez had been the bishop of the Lutheran Church in San Salvador for 40 years, a gentleman. The Lutheran Church in El Salvador used to be Missouri Synod. And then the Bishop Gomez realized he didn't have enough pastors, and he wanted to ordain women to be pastors of some of these rural communities. And the Missouri Synod said, "You can't do that." He's like, "Fine, then we're out. And we're going to do it anyway." And that's when they aligned with the ELCA. And so the ELCA is a mission partner with the Lutheran Church in San Salvador now. And Bishop, they had to restructure their constitution, and after 40 years, they redid the constitution. They just had the first bishop election, and Bishop Guadalupe Cortez is the first female bishop ever in El Salvador. In El Salvador. So, and they're doing, I think, 6-year terms or 4-year terms, kind of like we do here in America now. But she actually just, after meeting with us at the bishop's office, left to go to Phoenix to present and bring greetings to the ELCA at the churchwide assembly in Phoenix. So Pastor Lydia got to see her and meet her as well there. So that first, so we went to see her at the church at the, and this is Paquita. If you remember hearing stories of Pastor Glorabel, she's the one who started these churches, and then she raised up leaders to when she wants to retire that will take over. Paquita is a woman who Pastor Glorabel took under her wing, is really like a second daughter to her. Paquita's family kind of abandoned her, and so we paid as a congregation her seminary and university education, so that she could be a Lutheran pastor, because she had no resources to do any of that. So our congregation supported her through our mission and leaders fund that we have here in our designated accounts. And so she just completed her last class, will graduate this December, and she doesn't know it yet, but I was told by the bishop and the board that she will be granted ordination next summer. So they call people pastors, even though the ordination thing might come later, because they're all serving the church. Our first afternoon in El Salvador, we went to do 3 home visits. And this woman, remember her name? Marina is considered the grandmother of the congregation of Concordia Iglesia. She has raised all of her children in this home that you see here. When we do a home visit, they're so honored that we will come to their home. This home is made mostly out of corrugated metal in tarps, and it's on the side of the hill. And if they have us come in, we generally offer a blessing to the home, and they serve us a fruit cup or something as their chickens run around on the floors, and they're so delighted that we're there. But every hug that she gives comes with probably the most heavenly Holy Spirit blessing, because she whispers in your ear as she hugs you. And I don't know what the Spanish words were, but they're generally blessings upon you, and that you would always come back to her. She always wants us to come back to her. So in the years that we've gone there, we always have to do a home visit to her house. She demands it. And as the grandmother of the congregation, she gets what she wants. So that was our first house. The second house is this woman with her daughter. All the families in Concordia Glacier have special needs families. That's where they gathered, where they originally met in the school for, there's one school in the city of San Salvador for children with special needs. This woman, this is her mother's house that also functions as a Pentecostal church on Sundays in their front entry. But she and her sister live in back cubicles, you would almost call them, out of cinder block, and they all live in this area together. If one family member has a house, the extended family then all stays there as well, because they can afford other dwellings. But the flowers outside in the alley and everywhere, just so lush and gorgeous. The greetings, and they're so honored that we would come to be with them, because it validates them in their lives. They say that it's the greatest gift we could ever give, more than anything, to be with them. This woman, Yanira, Michelle has been on 15 trips, and she only nine. So she is much more versed in all them. Yanira, last year when we attended, was in a dire straits. She had been living down by the river with some very rudimentary posts and tarps, and a massive storm had come and washed everything she owned down the gully into the river. And for years had been living kind of in the woods on a wet mattress with her children, and didn't have much, but the church was the one thing that was there for her, giving her food or replenishing clothing and different things. And through the work of the church, this is her first apartment that she's ever had, and a roof over her head in this apartment complex block. And she was so proud that she had a roof over her family's head. So her husband was in the hammock. This is her special needs son, and she has two other little kids that we'll see on our beach day, and her pet parrot that she let me play with as well. As you can see, we had the electrical grid in these places was very interesting. I think that was the electrical pole for probably 100 different apartments right out of that one pole. So we didn't get too close to that, but we were honored that she wanted to host us and see us there. So, did we have our first presentation this evening, I think, after our home visit?
This was the first full day. So we had
Was it after Cozumel? Okay. The last stop of that day was Pastor Glorbell's home. If you've heard us praying for Pastor Glorbell, this is Pastor Glorbell. She fell last December and broke her arm in 3 places, which caused multiple surgeries. The ramifications of multiple surgeries, multiple anesthesias, and the multiple anesthesias created, if you've ever heard of neuropathy, that went throughout her body so that she couldn't move her arms or legs. She was in the hospital for multiple months. And she has a special needs son, Richard, that the church had to rally around to support while she was in the hospital. Paquita moved in with them to help take care of Richard. And literally, I think it was 2 weeks before we came, the doctors had told her she had lost the ability to speak and eat.
Oh.
And they called her family and said, she's not going to make it. You best come. She has children in New Orleans. And her husband has since passed. And so the children came, and then the congregation of Concordia Iglesia came one day to say their goodbyes to Pastor Glorbell, who was their life, their center. And then even the church in Guaymango, which is a hour and a half, 2 hour drive away, they came to say their goodbyes to Glorbell. It's my opinion that the visits of those people turned her around. And their prayers and their love upon her of all she has done for all of them for so many years. And she rebounded. And she got to her apartment. And then there was a nurse that came to stay with them. And then they told her, your goal is to try and climb the stairs once a week. And she's doing it once a day to try and fight her way back. And she demanded that we were hoping we might even go, one of us go see her in the hospital or something. And she demanded we stop at her home and see her. And it was the most, to see her joking and laughing with us. And we were told that we were excited to go to Guaymango again to see that rural community. And excited to, if you remember the story, we planted 2 trees there last year to talk about our growing relationship. And she quickly said, I have to call their pastor to plant a new tree if it died. She wasn't sure if it was alive anymore because she hadn't been there in over 6-7 months. Just last week, I saw on Facebook that she made it to church and made it to Concordia and out to Guaymango even. And so it's a miracle that she is recovering. There's another funny incident at this event that we won't talk about right now. But.
Come on, Taylor. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Bald head.
So Richard, as Sophie had said, was so one God moment that Sophie wanted to share was another very special God moment on the trip that both reaffirmed how amazing our partners are and still surprised was Glorbell's son Richard and his willingness and excitement to welcome us all into his home. Richard gets frustrated at times and has a difficult time regulating his emotions, so Michelle made sure to tell everybody to anticipate his potential shouting or outbursts, not wanting us to interact with him. Though it was very likely overwhelming for him at first to have us in his home, the way that Richard accepted us was unlike anything Sophie has ever seen. He shook our hands, he sat with us, he talked with Jaden and Jonah about sports, about football, and he knows certain words. He was like, cowboy, football. And he was just talking Jaden's ear off in the corner, and I give you thanks for you two entertaining him while we were trying to talk to Glorbell and help to focus Richard's attention. And we're saying our goodbyes, wishing a miraculous pastoral Glorbell her recovery. Richard's initiation, offering hugs and handshakes to all of us. Pleased that we had spent time with him and his mother. I had never experienced Richard act this way and was so overcome with joy to have been able to see him that way. Richard's display of contentment in hosting us needed none of my words of translation to understand how special the visit was. As we were leaving, I said, can we take a photograph together? And I was taking a photo, and we had all lined up like this, and I was doing a selfie, but then they said, Pastor John, you have to be in the photo, so I gave the camera, and I came to sit down next to Richard, and I took my hat off, and as I kneeled down, Richard screams out, bald head! Bald head! I think he thought in affinity, we have the same hairstyle. but the group thought that was rather fitting new title for me, and they plan to shout it out when I'm preaching or in worship. If you ever hear that in the congregation, no, it's a term of endearment, more than anything else. But Richard brought us great laughter that day. We also got to eat out and and have some playtime. They have some, they have some. You think of El Salvador, third world. They have many mini malls like we do now. China has invested a lot of money in Central America to get markets. They built $1 billion library in the city center, but there's a lot of investment in corporations, and this was a mall you would see anywhere. With all the trappings of a food court, and Tyler played on the Minion ride and different things. So there's both ends in this community there. This night, I want to say, is when we saw. Okay, I'll move on to the next day. The next day, we're visiting some sites in the city of San Salvador, and then going out to see one of the Mayan ruins and learn about the community and the history of that area of the region. So this is the Lutheran Church in San Salvador. Many of the churches in the Twin Cities that have partnerships in El Salvador sponsor children that go to school here. This is not in the public school district, it's a private school, but all of these children generally have one parent who's in jail, or they're an orphan child, or their family would never have the means to send them to school in the region, and so the Lutheran Church finds them and supports them and sends them in an education. I mean, children, I think it was kindergarten to 8th grade that they had there. The Lutheran school is in a compound right next to the biggest Lutheran church in Resurrection Church, which is Christian's church, where he is the pastor of, right there. But they were, so some churches support children, whereas we support Iglesia Concordia. This is many churches work through this school. Right down the road from there is Hope House, which is a soup kitchen that serves hundreds of people every day. They not only are a soup kitchen, but they also are a shelter if people needed a place to stay. What was really interesting, Carlos, our driver, who was an amazing driver for us, scared the bejeebus out of Mike several times. He wasn't used to. I grew up driving in New York City like that. Mike wasn't used to that, being a Minnesota kid. Traffic in San Salvador can be a little hairy, but Carlos said that he was even helped out by the soup kitchen at one point in his life when he was down and out, and so he was very appreciative that we were going to see the ministry that they do. It's one of the mission ministries of the Lutheran Church, and the ladies are making. Were they making pupusas, or I think they were making pupusas that morning, and we learned about all the kind of social services they do. This is the pastor who's worked there for 30 years at this mission, and they serve everybody and anybody who comes, and everybody is welcome. Some churches withdrew their funding for this because they don't discriminate. You could be GLBT plus and support you and have services for you, or just homeless or sheltered. And so they continue to open their doors to everybody, regardless. And so it's an amazing ministry. That afternoon, we drove north to Tazumel, which is one of the oldest ruins in El Salvador. It was interesting to learn that the history, it actually was Mayans who came down from Mexico to colonize in that central part of El Salvador and use the fertile ground in around 200 AD, before Christ. They were settled in that region. And then after how many thousands of years, a group from Guatemala then moved down and settled that region after them. But these were, so this was, this ceremonial mound had several adaptations upon it from some of the earliest to, then they would add more and more the different or communities that would come down and settle there. They even had little arts and crafts for children that our adults took over to show that, you know, everybody has talent in arts and crafts. So it was kind of fun to see. This is one of the soccer fields, we were told, sports fields that were part of the complex. A little narrow, but they believe it was a form of soccer that was being played there, unlike lacrosse that you would see in some of the other Aztec communities. Oops. Okay. So as we're learning about the earliest culture, that evening we had the president of the Lutheran College, Fidel Nitro, came and had dinner with us. There were 3 nights where we had discussions from people who lived there about either culture or history. And he's a sociologist, so Sophie wanted to write this. Her last God moment came from the conversation we had with the president of the Lutheran College, Fidel Nitro, which was a privilege enough to translate for the group. It's one thing to translate Spanish, it's another to translate a geopolitical lecture. Our jaws were dropping, you know, Jaden did amazing in his, getting around language of Spanish, but he's just like, even that was like next doctoral level of translating Spanish that she was able to do. Mr. Nitro, like me, Sophie says, is a sociologist. It was one of the most fascinating discussions I've ever had, and I feel lucky to have been able to understand his words on a more profound level because of my studying of sociology. His willingness to talk with us about very difficult political and humanitarian issues in his country and the relationship El Salvador has with other countries now was a testimony to how much he cares about his work, his community, and all the students that studied at the university. I did actually translate the words he said to us, but Mr. Nitro's care for the people of the college and the world was clearly conveyed in the time that it took to come on a random night to talk to us, and his dedication to education for the betterment of the world. What was interesting was to hear an outsider's view of America, and historically, an outsider's view of America. Even Christian, talking about, when he was growing up in the rural community, and the army that was attacking his family and killing, the guns and the bombs that blew up his village and his family all said "Made in the USA." And so it took him decades to ever overcome that and to connect with the people who are Americans and us who are coming down. So there's this, they care for us, they love us, but there's this tension with the views of power and who we as a country support, whether it's whatever political ruler or leader at the time. They recognize that the leaders aren't us, always. And that's a huge, when we talk about beloved community, that's a huge thing to overcome, to be able to love another community and people. So he was not pulling any punches with his views on our geopolitical situation. He mentioned that their president, if you've heard different things, there was a civil war that was in the 80s, 90s. Then there was the, now they call it the second Civil War, which was the gang violence war between the different gangs, which were actually immigrants, Southern immigrants who had gone to Los Angeles and gotten entrapped in the gang culture and brought it back to El Salvador. So it was another import to their country that then decimated their country. So where's the second lecture we kind of had was from Sophie's exchange student friend, Bea, and her mother, and Bea and Bea's boyfriend. I was asking them, what is it like for you to grow up in this country? And for Bea's mother, who lived through the Civil War and lost half of her family, and And then Bea, who they lived through the gang war and lost many of their friends from school. They would just disappear or be shot or in the open street. And they have such joy in their lives, even though the trauma is right there. There's no, it's like people who served in World War II or escaped Europe's concentration camps. The trauma's right there, but their love and their joy of and pride in their neighborhood, in the community, and for us was humbling in what they could overcome, and still have the love of God in them. So the president of El Salvador right now, while the sociologist was saying he's catering to the Chinese to get the money, but he's also catering to President Trump and this administration to get the tariffs that they need for markets. And it could go down in a house of cards, or it could be okay. They don't know. He's not one or the other. He's trying to play both sides for the betterment of the country. He was their president, rather than when colonial powers took over, there were 7 families that really ruled that owned all the land and ruled it like plantations in the beginning of America. And those 7 families had all the power and would bring in different leaders depending whatever served their needs. Now they have a populist president that's the people elect, but like in America, power lies where in our American-made oligarchies that own everything. So that interplay is happening in San Salvador, but the president saw the war that was happening with the gangs and decided enough is enough, and he put 90,000 people in jail in the course of 9 months. The gangs in that time had to have a tattoo. If you didn't have a tattoo, you assumed the person was from the other gang and you would get killed. So it was self-preservation from one town to another to have the listing of the gang on your body. But if you did, then once the president threw everybody in jail, if anybody had a tattoo, you were gone. And there were no trials. You automatically got 40 years. If you were known to have murdered somebody, then you got 80 years with no trial. It just was the way it was. We know people got swept up or were told, oh, that person is a gang member by an informant, and there's no trial, so that person just went away. However, Bea and the others would say, you have no idea what the horror was like for us. So we live with that uncomfortable truth so that we can have a life. And so it's been 2 years now since they did this. And as Michelle has even had to deal with the trauma of going throughout the country before that, when you had to step out of your vehicle and go as quick as you could into a building because you didn't want to get shot or seen, to now we can walk down any street in San Salvador and in the rural community, in the city, and be totally fine.
Wow.
The freedom that they have now is amazing if you're not in a gang or associated with. And even one day when we were in rural Guaymangu, you didn't see a lot of police presence, but we were driving to a home visit in the middle of nowhere, and there was a patrol stopped our car, and there were 4 paramilitary guys in the woods watching us with one officer checking the ID of our driver and okayed us because we obviously are white gringos in the middle of the rural community. They were looking for gang members to make sure that the gangs don't come back through recruitment out in the rural area. So there's the geopolitical kind of situation that they're living in. The next day we went to Guaymangu, which is a lovely 2-hour drive in our comfy van together. And this church was started. This was actually Pastor Glorabel's first church that she started. Concordia Iglesia was the second one that she started, and she raised up Pastor Ishmael, who actually was on the same track that Paquita was, he got his training elsewhere, but he will officially be ordained next summer. And then Laurabelle can kind of retire from running both of these places, so these pastors. But this church is packed with little kids. And one of the things is, if you ever want to be loved, go to El Salvador. Because you step out of the vehicle and every single person in the church comes up and gives you a hug and welcomes you. And even the children are taught from a young age, you go and if any visitor comes, you welcome them like their family. And so everybody came. And then the Passion of the Peace takes really long in church because every member gets out of their church to come and hug each of us and everybody. And it's such a wonderful thing. We did all of our services. We would, in Spanish and English, they would speak the scripture, and then one of our members would. Jaden and Tyler just hit it off with the young guys at this church, and it was beautiful to see, a little intimidation at first, and then all of a sudden, and they just chimed in. We were making fun and laughing, and I don't even know what the topics were. Do you want to share any of the topics? Best not.
I can't remember.
Good conversation. This was also where we made bags. Michelle had designed with our Gethsemane logo, and it said Amada Comunidad, which means beloved community. And all the supplies that you had donated to bring, we had 4 suitcases full of acetaminophen and ibuprofen and Band-Aids, and then feminine products and some clothing, T-shirts from our Vacation Bible School that we shared with them. And they were very grateful to have all of these supplies. And we actually had so much that this pastor could have a whole, 2 drawers filled with those that he could save to hand out when other families who weren't present that day needed some medical over-the-counter medicines, which is their primary hardest thing to get because they don't have the funds for it. So a typical fever or cold that you or I might have, they can't get medicine for it because they're paying for just food. The other interesting thing is Pastor Ishmael, he serves 3 communities in this area. This is the church, and he walks over an hour and a half to get here every time, or when he goes to do a visit. So one of the things, we actually were very good stewards of our resources, and so we donated money for him to buy a scooter so that he could get to and from church and to do home visits on the sick and the elderly. And so that was a fun way to support the mission and the ministry that they're doing there in Guayamango. Of course, they had to feed us. So out in the back, they had a food train of pupusas, making pupusas, and Jane and Bev sat with the ladies and watched what they did, so they promised to make them for us someday. It was in the fine print. But it's a combination of flour with refried beans and then a cheese, and then they pinch it like a dumpling and then flatten it out and fry them, and they just made mountains of these. And then you're supposed to put a coleslaw on top with some salsa sauce. If you could eat 2, you were full. Some of us ate 3 or 4, and we rolled our way out of there. This is the mango tree that we planted last time, so they did live. And after 4 years of growth, they should be producing fruit already. So it was we did that as an induction to say, we want this relationship to grow and bear fruit as we move forward in the future. So
I heard that was a replacement tree.
did you hear that?
Yeah.
I think it's the original. The bark looked the same.
Oh.
But Then we did some home visits and to this region. In this one house, they didn't have anything to serve us, but then they asked, "Would you like some coconut?" And in the back, they had a whole string of coconuts they had just gotten off the tree, and they brought out this massive machete and started chopping. So the guys all had cooks. They wanted to machete themselves. I told them they are not allowed to. And then when I left, I guess they might have, but they're not admitting that they did. They macheted their own coconuts. So they did a cheers and had some fresh coconut at this one home. This mother with her little child, the most adorable thing. Of course, I wanted to hold all the children, but she reminded me that last year her child was crying throughout worship. And I had quieted the child down when it was only like a few months old, and she had let me hold him, and so it was a fun memory for me that we're watching these children grow. But we have to talk to this house. This gentleman is a farmer. It was so lush. This is the rainy season, but a very modest adobe home with terracotta roofs, with bamboo infrastructure, but every board in that house was perfect. I mean, there were sticks, but they were perfectly measured. I mean, the pride in his home, the floors, the dirt floors swept pristinely. You could see what pride they had in hosting us and serving us coffee. Mike was really excited that we got coffee and it was 100 degrees outside and something to temperate our bodies.
You could have anything you wanted when it was 90 degrees, as long as it was coffee.
Yeah. Jonah and Jaden, there's a valley with a river down below, and they climbed down there with the owner. They wanted to see the full hillside of cascading cornfields, and they had fruit trees and different things there. But it was a delight to be invited into their homes and see their lives. The next day, Saturday, was a day at the beach. So every year we try and we bring the entire community of Concordia Iglesia, the parents and children, to the beach and stay at a resort there. We don't stay, we go for the day. But it's like $15 for the day to have access to these pools. Includes lunch and a day at the beach. And this is a huge treat to them because they can't afford this. They can't travel there or get there. And so they had such delight. A lot of there's really bad riptides in the Pacific Ocean here, so a lot of the children won't go past ankle deep, but in the pools they can splash and play. As some would say, this one young man, he would just splash in the water and just glee and giggle. And you could see his excitement of that tactile interaction that he wouldn't get, he doesn't get in his home. He never has access to a pool or something like that. This is a special picture, I think. Do you want to tell the story yourself?
Sure. In 2015, I have that written on this card, the group came back with many pictures of their special needs members of the congregation and invited us that were here at their presentation, like we are today, to take a card home and have them as a prayer partner. So Carlos and Anna have been on our refrigerator for 10 years. I took the cards with me, and you can see the bottom got wet in my backpack here, but anyway, and so I asked Michelle also, but Paquita and other members of the congregation, who's Carlos? Is Carlos still here, or is he one of the group? And they said, yes, that is Carlos. And so he's holding this picture of him that's been on our refrigerator for 10 years. And so we were able to meet him, and his mother is actually between Pastor John and Tyler. His mother and his brother Eduardo. Carlos is not special needs, but Eduardo is. They, as others know, they're Special Olympic swimmers, but Carlos knows a fair amount of English, so we had a nice little conversation, and he works for an airlines, so he he's doing well, I suppose you could say, in things, but that was very special for us, so I made sure I brought these with us on our trip.
A legacy of prayer and relationship. We're met together there. So that was a huge blessing. Not only did we have a fun day at the beach, but then the kindergarten teacher in Michelle brought forth probably one of the greatest highlights of the trip was arts and crafts.
Yes.
These children, a lot of them once they kind of go through the school, I don't know what the program is, but they can make arts and crafts and try and sell that in the market, or it's something that they do for them in their community ed. And so they love making beads and jewelry and whatever. And so we sat down, and not only did the students, but their parents just dove in. And again, she designed these little Minnesota state cutouts that said "Beloved Community" on them. They had such delight in making their very own kind of necklace and wear them, and it was so much fun for us and for them. Michael's even wearing his.
I've got a story to tell.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I wore my bracelet that I made, and everybody thought it was really, well, one or two people liked it. And so Pastor John said, "Let me take a picture." So he went and he started to take a picture. Well, there was a bird in the roof of the thatched hut that had a different opinion of my necklace. And just as Pastor John took the picture, he shared his opinion. Luckily, I had that hat on,
Yeah.
so it saved me. He was very accurate, too.
Yeah.
Good story.
But the children had really nice necklaces. So that was a huge, kind of fun celebration day for us. Our last day was worship, and this was an odd year because normally we arrive on a weekend, and the first thing we do is worship with them, and then we go throughout the week of visits. This time, it was kind of a celebration of the end of our time together, and a celebration of our relationships. Sophie again translated all of the kind of service, the sermon, and when everything was read and shared. This is the pastor from Hope House who wanted to come, and she gave a candle to Concordia and Gethsemane and said, "We want you to have this candle as a light of a reminder of the light of Christ that shines between this relationship." As you can see, they gave us each a scarf as a blessing and a reminder of them. They thought we needed a little color in our life because we were a little drab compared to what they felt we should have. And they gave each of us gifts of a mug that celebrated the relationship, mostly with our right names on them. Some people's, you got a new name. But John's not a bad new name. But as Sophie would say, my perspective on our trip to our visit with our sister congregation, reaffirming yet ever-changing. What I mean by this is the familiarity of the radical hospitality, something I've grown used to and always look forward to each year. I'm still surprised at how much more our partners show us their excitement to welcome us. For example, I knew they would greet us with open arms when we came off our microbus on Sunday upon our arrival to worship, but they also planned a welcome performance to greet us as they arrived to worship at Iglesia Concordia, and a large banner, instruments, and dancing. If there was any particular moment of feeling God in that space was during our trip, it was that special performance. Though I knew what the Spanish worship song was actually saying, there was no needs for translating any of it into English. As I look around at all the faces of our group members and saw how they knew exactly the message was conveyed. So this was their the performance, the youth of the congregation did a song and dance welcoming us to their worship space. As you see, this is the mosaic that we have right here. And last year, we brought it to them, or 2 years ago, we brought it to them so that our worship space would mirror their worship space. One of their members took it home and built this frame for it and put glass on it so that it could hang permanently. Because, as you can see, their worship space is this is a carport during the day. So people park there in the city, and then they bring out tables and things, and that's their worship space on Sundays. But so this now hangs in their sanctuary as a reminder of our connection and how we continue to pray for one another in Christ. After worship, not only there's a celebration. It was the end of the month, and so they celebrate the birthdays, and it's normally for the members of that church, but Michael let them know that, of course, that it's his birthday, so he wanted to be included in the celebration, and made us think to him as well. And then they put on a dance, which was the traditional El Salvadorian dance. They made Sophie join in because she had spent time there and knew the dance, but the mothers and daughters together did this dance, their traditional El Salvadorian dance. And then we had a wonderful feast and celebration together. And even they did some joke skits. The adults did little comedy together. We again shared with them many of the blessings that you had poured out to that congregation, and we had so much that we actually gave every family like a massive bottle of both ibuprofen and acetaminophen, which they were super grateful for. Different takeaways from the trip were Mike and Bev dealing drugs and things you don't think you'll ever see in your life, or little cute Michelle in her rain poncho. When we got caught, we only got caught in the rain one day. It rained every night, but we were generally having dinner, so that was fun. Other takeaways, Tyler's crush. This little girl had a massive crush on Tyler, and so wanted to be sure that when they had students present the gifts, that she was the one that got to present the gift to Tyler. She was super excited about it. But the friendships that we formed together were lasting memories and bonds forever. And our time in the band. I mean, how do you not love some of the funniest things about the trip came out of those hour-long rides in the van together.
2.5 hours.
2 or 2.5 hours on a good day. Yeah.
2.5 hours to Guaymango and back. 2.5 hours back. Yeah.
Not that we're counting, but I give thanks for our group that was willing to put up with one another for that long. So I would ask each participant to kind of share the thing that they hold on to, the memory or the event or the occurrence. If you could get up, turn around, and share your name and what was your item. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Bob. Oh.
Oh.
This has been my 4th trip. I'm Bob Doomer, and Paulette started our family, and we've gone down a couple times, but I went alone the last 2 times because she's been taking care of our granddaughter. But right before COVID, one of the patrons of this of our community is Romano, and his Bible was falling apart. I mean, he'd open it up and pages would fall out. So I went to Pastor Glorbell and said, I'd like to get him a Bible. What kind do I get? She gave me a specific name for a Bible, and I went and I got that for him, and I got him a nice enclosure for it, or a bag that he could keep it in. And because of COVID, we didn't go down the next year, so they had another church that was going down. I gave it to Pastor Sarah. She said she'd make sure that they got it, and they would get it to him. So last year, we were looking for that Bible. They looked everywhere, they couldn't find it. So when we were packing up on Thursday, here's the Bible. So I had an opportunity to take that Bible and give it to him. And it was really special for both of us. He was touched, I was touched, and it was so much more personal being able to give it to him. So I mean, he has reached out to all of us. He compares his skinniness to my belly and gives me a bad time about it. But it is another connection that's there. And it's amazing the different connections that we get. So it was a privilege and honor to be able to actually present it to him.
Yeah, the
Can you
only
come
thing.
forward, so we're recording this for, so you can come up here.
Go, John.
What's your name?
David. The main thing that really stuck out to me was like all the hugs. Everyone was getting very like lovely hugs, and it was just very touching. You know, everyone was very lovely. No one was fighting. It was great.
Oh, I'll give you a hug, man. Who else? You can say the same thing. You have to introduce yourself.
My name is Emma, and like Jaden said, all the hugs and the love that they gave us without us knowing them was very great.
I'm Jonah. This was my first time going to El Salvador, so I was just really surprised by the amount of like welcomeness that I received. They treated me like a friend, even though they've never seen me before. So I thought that was just amazing.
I'm Jane, and these are my kids that came with me. My first time too, and went with some expectations, but didn't know what to expect, and it was nothing like I imagined. It was so much better. As everyone said, the welcoming is just fantastic. I remember on beach day, I think it was Alejandra, is that what her name was jumping up and down when our bus came. She was so excited to see us, and it's like, wow, But it was just, they're very gracious, they don't have a lot, but they're very gracious and very grateful for what they have. And you come away with that going, wow, we should try to do that too.
My name's Tyler. This was also my first time on the trip, and I would say my favorite thing about the trip was hearing everyone's different experience. Getting to hear experiences from each of the church members, and then also from each of the presenters that we had each evening. From Christian, the president of the university, it was very eye-opening to hear those experiences of the country and everything that's happened throughout the history from those people directly, as opposed, secondhand. It's one thing to hear it as you guys come back, very moving, but hearing them say it with their emotion directly tied to it was very powerful. So, yeah.
Michael?
Shared something.
Oh, yeah, we heard from another.
No. Well, I guess it was just the myriad of experiences that you had in a trip like that, the highs and the emotional ones as well. I learned to greet these little bitty geckos in my apartment. And then there was one where we had our patio, we had breakfast and dinner. There was a gecko that lived behind the picture. And it was good to know that geckos really don't have a British accent. So I learned that. Then we had, after our wonderful service, they served us after a nice lunch with a Kaiser roll, and it was chicken. And I took a bite, and there was bones in it. They don't debone the chicken. You have to do that as you're eating it, so that was a surprise to me as well. But the one thing I guess is that I remember is when they got up, we were at the beach, and they got to say something. They wanted to say something to all of us, and not one or two got up. Every one of them got up to share something with us, and that to me, it was amazing that they all cared so much about our visit and showed so much love to us.
I shared. I've been. I'm Bev. I was impressed from the beginning with how lush it was. As Pastor John mentioned before, it's the rainy season, but the hills and it was just green, green, green everywhere. And then on the driving in from the airport, there were a lot of murals on some of the walls that are the same colors as these. And be sure to look for the cross that's just inside the gathering space. That's probably this big. You know, those are the colors of that Christian uses a lot to paint his crosses. But the lushness of the country, and even though we saw places of great poverty, we also experienced amazing richness in spirit and gratitude and friendliness, and the kids have mentioned about hugs and such. But it's a wonderful relationship that we have with another part of the world that we know so little about. Thanks.
Hi, Michelle. I don't have anything super profound to share, but I've been 9 times, and every time I go, it's a unique experience where I get to see and feel the love of God, the grace that they give us, and the gifts of their friendship are something that mean a lot to me, and I will continue to go for as long as I can.
For me, primarily to have Tyler come and experience this with me, and for him to, for your, other than Canada, your first international trip, and just experience that love, that you can't put to words. The other thing, I'm a doer. I like to get things done, and I like a project. And being 3 years on a mission trip that didn't build something is a challenge for me. But this year more than ever, I'm just like, this is the most impactful trip I've had in all the places I've been building things or homes or whatever, cleanups, because of the relationship that even went deeper than it had been. And I think it was Christian at the end of his long talk telling about his story and his challenge of, coming to terms with relationship. He's like, don't send us your money. Come. Because we're not going to heal as a world unless we're together. And yes, it's wonderful, and they need the resources and the finances. But when you come and spend time with me, that's the greatest treasure in the world. And I was like, okay, I'll keep coming. And I can do nothing better than that. So, but speaking of the money, we part of our support for El Salvador Mission, money that is sent to the Synod is tied and used to support the Lutheran Synod of El Salvador. It was many years ago that Pastor Sarah initially started, people could give monthly to support the actual families. When we do a need of the month, we bring money down and I give it to Pastor Glorabelle and she disperses it to the families in greatest need so the pastors kind of do that social work component of their life by helping these families just survive. But things like $3 a day is bus fare for them to get around because they don't have vehicles. School supplies, $10 to $20 a month would help them have school supplies to attend their school. Or a lot of them go to training schools. So a gift of $50 or $100 will buy the fabric or the wood or so that they can learn some trade of some sort that a lot of these special needs kids don't have a lot of opportunities for. $300 for glasses. It was a couple, just last year, we started bringing even like the over-the-counter, reading glasses because a lot of the women couldn't read because they didn't have glasses. And those were a big help. For $100 a month, a lot of ongoing medical care, that would help that whole church. Pastor Global would help them go to the doctor when they need to, and the special, but anything on a monthly basis would really, it all goes to Pastor Global and Pastor Ishmael, Pastor Paquita, to help those. It really goes to the families, and that are in the greatest need. So that's just one way we can support. But, you talk about richness. This man and his wife and the 3 daughters that lived there were so, I was overwhelmed with how blessed they were. He had such pride in his home, and his family, and their community, and their church. And I got to see the richness of, it might seem very meager, but it was the treasure of their wealth was outstanding. So, questions?
Are there other churches who visit that particular congregation?
I don't think they have other mission partners. Guaimangu might have one, but I think Concordia does not. Beth?
It's not a question as much as just a quick comment. I went on the first 3 trips with Pastor Sarah Mode and Leah and, the people who went. It is so different now. I mean, we literally had to stay in our hotel, or we could step out a block from it because the police station was there, and that was all we could do the first 2 years. And then they expanded it to like 3 blocks the 3rd year. But amazing, the changes. Amazing.
Question?
I have a question. How do they round up and pay for all these prisoners? Or did they die? Or were they killed? Or the 90,000 people that they put in prison. And it's like, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't know if it was grants from the Chinese government that they built massive prisons. And they're all in these massive prisons. And even if you remember here, but the people in the country really have no idea they're not told anything. And they have no right of access to information. So they said, you generally in America have more information about my country than I will, because of our open press. Any other questions?
A very small-minded question, but to do with the creativity that they love to do and the gifts they made for you. Where do they get the supplies from? Is that from China, or is it something they make themselves, like the beads? Do they have a business where they create the beads that they use as part of their gift making?
Good question.
But those beads for that project, Michelle brought.
Well, right, but
For what you saw on our trip.
we brought with us.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
really?
a lot of the students go to these trade schools, and that's where they make crafts. But they often will they will try and raise money to go to that school, and so their parents might have to pay something for their special needs kid to go to that trade school.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming to learn
Thank
a little
you.
bit
Yeah,
about
thanks for going.
our joy, and I hope you think about maybe joining us next year. I already have 4 individuals that have promised they couldn't make this year and they want to next year. And so, no, we don't have the dates yet. So thank you.
Oh, bro, my leg hurts. I'm gonna get my light. I want to go. Oh, yeah.
As a way of, so thank you for feeling it's worth doing, if you can't go. And financial support. Thanks, Linda. How you doing?
They actually, special needs got barely.
Good, how about you?
Kathy in Special Olympics swimmers. That whole spectrum.
Because of the stories, and I had pictures, and it was, yeah.
For the highest level, they could.
All somebody said was.
They also teach sewing. They teach
But
carpentry.
I don't know.
And then for those that just really can't cope with anything. Classes for doing art. And the idea is, well, they want to be engaged, no matter what level they are. And so even the ones that can string beads or painting, the idea is that they can help their family, they can set up a little corner shop and sell stuff.
I didn't even know his mother was most pleased.
We watch these kids grow from
Pretty good, yeah, really good.
Mira's kids were probably 4 or 5 when they first started.
Oh, yeah.
And the youngest are probably early teens, something like that. And they don't necessarily show special needs, and that's kind of the trick. Because you look at some of them, and
Well, yeah, that's probably.
for me, I
Yeah.
grew up with son that had special needs, so Paul said after the first time they walked into the kitchen, he says, there's a lot of people in that church that are intimidated by the fact that these kids are
But know how to say, where's the bathroom, and, you know.
the Salvador does try to take care of them to the level that they can. The church had kind of abandoned them, which was why
But what I'd like to do.
Iglesia was started, because the church, the Missouri Synod Church wouldn't let them take. Because they aren't capable of understanding. Well, I would challenge that, and they did challenge that, saying they understand love, what more do you need to understand? And you should be able to participate.
There's a lot of.
So I'm going